The questions log. Week 12. Spent the week going inside since our encounter with the so-called snake fatale. All the clues are converging on a single point. At this juncture, the only thing stopping me from moving on to the next step is that I'm waiting for Montoya to say it with me. Are you ready? Road trip! This is 52 Pickup.
Hello, welcome to 52 Pickup, the podcast about the greatest comic book you've never heard of. I'm Gita Jackson, just Gita Jackson, always and forever, and I'm joined by my co-host.
For the moment, I am professional comic book expert Alex Jaffe.
So wonderful to have a professional comic book expert on this show.
Someone's got to keep us reined in. Somebody's got to keep us on track. Somebody's got to keep us talking about comics.
Yes, because I would go off on a tangent at the first opportunity.
Yeah, my sort of raison d'etre in life, wherever I go, is sometimes I'll be in a conversation that's not about comics, and it's my job to bring it back to being about comics, no matter where that happens to be. On the train, with my family. This fortunately is an outlet where that actually applies. So I'm happy to have my skills channeled towards that. I'm in a job interview right now. Let me explain this gap in my resume. I was sort of finding myself at that point, and I think I came out of it a richer person, as I'm sure you'll see as in the ways that I contribute to the team dynamic. I hope you'll reach me under consider. What was the salary cap on this position again?
Hearing the phrase team dynamic, it just sent me into a dark hole. I don't know.
What can you tell me about the office culture here, Gita?
Yeah, everybody neurodivergent listening, which I'm assuming is a huge portion of the audience, understands what it's like to have to fake being neurotypical for a period of 45 minutes at a job interview.
Yeah.
Like, hello, I am Mr. Normal Man.
This is my regular voice.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're here to talk about 52 number 12. If this was a monthly series like a normal comic book, this would be the end of year one, but instead it's the end of 3 months, because that's the premise of this comic, that it comes out once a week.
There you go. So 3 months, 12 weeks. That's how it works. That's just how the passing of time works, and the calendar system that we all abide by in the Western world.
Those of us who aren't Booster Gold, I suppose.
We experience time going forwards exclusively and in the correct order. Yes.
We are linear men and women and other. Should we talk talent for this issue?
Is there talent to talk?
Not a lot. I just want to say that Eddie Barrows and Rob Stull and Travis Lanham are back from issue 8, and David Barron is back from issue 9, but otherwise this is the usual gang. We're going to see some new faces in the backup, though, but we'll cross that bridge once we get there.
Yes, the backup is fun, as promised, as Jaffe has promised for several weeks, that we'd finally get out of the drudgery of explaining the entirety of the DC universe in a truncated way and into something more fun. And I remembered what the backups were when I finally got to it this week, and I was like, oh, this is fun.
You know, I've been thinking about the contrast between the history of the DC Universe backups and these more character-focused backups, and how that pairs to how people get into comic book universes. If you try to read everything linearly from the beginning of time to the latest event, you're going to get turned off. Mm-hmm. The way you get into these universes is by following specific characters that you're into. And and what we're seeing here is a change of one approach to following comic book continuity to a much more effective one.
Yes, definitely. I think the best method for getting into comics is to figure out a character you like and then Google character name, best run, or best arc. And then from there, just go in whatever direction you feel.
Right. I like to think there are 2 phases of comic book fandom. First, you find a character you like. Then you find your favorite writer on that character. And then you follow that writer everywhere.
Yes, that's what happened to me. Actually, that's how I became a Grant Morrison fan.
Oh, yeah.
I was just like, what are the best Vertigo comic books? Because I just read Sandman because it was at my library. And then I was like, okay, so...
Bad news, you just read the best one.
I just read the best one. So I was just trying to explore what other books came out on that imprint, and that led me to Animal Man. And then I was at an impressionable age, and it colored my perception of what is good and bad forever.
God, you just caught me literally minutes before this recording. I was just reading the Lock and Key Sandman crossover that came out a few years ago that Joe Hill wrote. It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That dude can write a comic.
If you want to find the exact intersection between Stephen King and Neil Gaiman, that's the book, baby.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a beautiful cover over here. This was one of J.G. Jones' most difficult covers to figure out. He said that reading the scripts, most of them just came to him immediately, but he just didn't know really what to do with this one because Isis was this brand new character who's going to be featured in a major way through the rest of the series. He ended up with this sort of Aladdin-esque, I can show you the world image.
That is definitely what it's giving. I can show you the world.
Every moment, red letter.
Yeah, it sells what becomes a very, like a relationship that becomes a backbone of that particular story arc. And it sells it as good as, if not better than, the actual story of that romance.
Mm-hmm. He said what he was trying to do was set up a sort of yin-yang with the way they embrace each other, with darkness and the light of each character informing the others. Stephen Wacker, the editor's idea was to have him holding the Kondak flag as he flew, kind of representing where they're going together with this nation. And he threw a sphinx in the background. just
why not?
Just because.
Just why not?
Gives it a sense of place.
You need to have something in the background. Yeah. And there's, at this point, our iconography, our pop cultural iconography of what the Middle East was pretty limited. So Sphinx, pyramid, pretty much the only two reference points you can draw if you're expecting the audience to not really know a lot about the Middle East.
It was things we saw in Aladdin.
Yeah, I think that's where the list began and ended.
Yeah.
So we're at week 12. Where are we starting on week 12?
Checking in on Maggie Sawyer in Gotham City, day 1. This is another unorganized issue where everything happens on a single day.
And then for the rest of the week, they just chill.
Yeah. You know, superheroes need days off, too.
Absolutely. They're all hitting the spot. I'm sure that's where Booster is right now, actually. He's getting a facial done and then running out before he has to pay.
Absolutely. He doesn't have the cash to pay anymore. You can put it on my tab.
Booster, distract
I'm good for it.
Yeah.
So here we got Maggie Sawyer, blast from Gotham Central's past. We saw her check in on Renee a few weeks ago. Here, Montoya's linking up with her again.
Yeah, and Maggie Sawyer's just pissed. She's unhappy about this interaction. Essentially, Renee is lamenting a little bit about not being a cop anymore, which is something I don't really believe that she misses. But she does miss the resources that cops have, including the ability to put manpower on an issue. And Maggie is not having it. She sees exactly what Renee is trying to do and shuts it down immediately.
Yeah, it seems what she misses most about being a cop is the logistical stuff that being a cop gives you access to, not the institution itself.
Yeah, she's pretty disillusioned with the idea of being a police officer at this point. But she is correct that solving this mystery is a lot harder when she doesn't have the resources or the manpower that the institution of the police can give her access to. But that doesn't mean that she's giving up. The next page, she returns home to Vic meditating in his underwear, I assume. We can't see his crotch, but if you're living with a lesbian, I would think it would be pretty rude to just meditate nude in their living room.
Well, this is something Vic did a lot back in the Denny O'Neil series. Renee even refers to it here as going inside, which is what the phrase he used to refer to meditation throughout the series. So this is kind of a callback to the motif of where we found Vic Sage very often when we were resetting for the beginning of an adventure. Renee gives that "Hi, honey, I'm home" as she's walking in, kind of reminiscent of Batman Returns, as well as whatever sitcom.
I also love that she bonks him on the head with a beer bottle.
It's so good. And he doesn't even move.
Yeah. She's not exactly happy about this, but it is the situation in which they find themselves. And after they do a little bit of a back and forth, well, mostly it's her going back and him giving nothing.
Right.
But she eventually asks him if he's going to give in and give them what she knows the next step of this mystery is. And he smiles and says, "All right, you win. We'll go to Kondak."
Like he was waiting for her to catch up and be on board.
Exactly. And then we go to Kondak in the next page.
Yeah. We don't even have to wait. We don't book a flight at all.
Yeah.
We're just there.
This is where the title of the issue appears also, is this splash where, well, it's not a splash. It's 3 big old panels where it's difficult to see exactly what's happening, but it's explained later that this is Black Adam's just going by a river super fast and therefore changing the direction it flows because that's how that works.
He is changing the course of mighty rivers, as the narration in the old Superman radio serial and TV show told you Superman could do.
Hence the title, Mighty.
Well, that's one of 3 reasons we get a Mighty here. The other is that Black Adam was originally known as Mighty Adam before the wizard Shazam cursed him to the other end of the universe and relabeled him Black Adam for his sins. The other is that one of the major debuts here is the character of Isis, who in the 1975 CBS TV show, The Secrets of Isis, would shout, "Oh, mighty Isis," to transform from a science teacher into an ancient Egyptian goddess.
It's just the idea of a TV show being called The Secrets of Isis that cracks me up right here.
Yeah.
I know that I'm bringing 2024 knowledge to this comic book that is not from that era, but it's very funny.
Oh, no, there is absolutely a reason you don't see Isis in comic books anymore. Adriana has kind of quietly disappeared in the modern age of comics.
There's plenty of other, goddesses from mythology that they could just swap out the name for. There's a lot of places they could go with that if they wanted to. I like Isis, was what I'm going to say.
On the other hand, I imagine Isis being like, why should I change my name? They're the ones who suck.
That's true. I mean, that would be the most in character, right?
Yeah.
What about Isis defeats Isis?
Yeah, that's the comic we're looking for. That's the kind of comic I can count on Jeff Johns to sensitively deliver.
And the one finger of the monkey's paw curls down.
Oh, yeah. Poof, indeed. God.
Yeah, I hate the way that Middle Eastern people are depicted in this following next few pages.
Yeah.
One, because you know what other places change directions of a river in order to divert the water to the population as opposed into going into a river or bay? Chicago. If you can do that in Chicago, you can do it anywhere. Like,
Yeah.
But here, because, obviously it's like Black Adam doing it, so it's just one guy doing it instead of a team of engineers. The idea is that these poor, impoverished, Middle Easterners are so impressed, they desire to worship this man as a god. I don't buy it. I believe that they are mature enough to have the same reaction to this guy as they would as Americans have to Superman.
Yeah, these guys know what an airplane is.
Look, seriously, the whole concept of airspace has been such an essential part of this storyline. You can't tell me that these people are so backwards they think a superhero is a god. Come on.
Like, they're so entrenched with this Agrabah visualization that they think they're in the year 1000. It's kind of silly.
It's a very Western idea of what the Middle East is like, as opposed to now. I mean, the idea of the global village has advanced so much that we do have a better understanding of what it is just like to be a normal person living in this area. And guess what? They have less internet access, but they do still have internet access.
Right.
Yeah. So the following conversation between Adriana and Black Adam also has some of these really frustrating undertones wherein Adriana just comes off like an American in a really distracting way. And
repeating word volutes. I don't know if you noticed this, but they accidentally give Adriana the same line twice.
Whoopsie.
In 2 panels on this page.
It's a weekly book.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes that'll slip through.
Yeah, it is. The stuff that leads up into this romance is so much less interesting to me than the actual relationship that they actually have.
Yeah.
It feels like the stuff that's in this issue, it feels like they're trying so hard to sell this to me when I already believe it and I don't want any of this, Like, Black Adam falls in love with the goddess Isis. I believe that. You don't have to sell that to me. You don't have to paint this picture of a tortured and lonely man that just needs a woman that he deserves. That is already in the setup of this arc, right?
Right. Well, I think what Jeff is doing here is back in his JSA series, he established that Black Adam already had a wife and children 3,000 years ago, and they died, and that's kind of a big part of his heel turn. So this is like him learning to love a human woman again.
I mean, couldn't he have gone with she's pretty? Instead of she has Western values that challenge my evil Middle Eastern values?
Yeah, her Egyptian Western values, because she's ostensibly an Egyptian woman.
It's just frustrating. It shows you how far we have come in terms of Arab representation in any kind of popular media.
Yeah.
But also, it's very sad that at this time, this is the sort of conversations we imagine between two Arab characters about being Arabs in an Arab country.
It's pretty awful. She's like, they have a conversation about like how power corrupts, or doesn't necessarily have to. You could be a benevolent dictator if you wanted to.
But I'm sorry. America already takes issue with that idea.
Yeah.
It has deposed a lot of quote unquote benevolent dictators.
Yeah.
Like this idea that everything Black Adam does is judged under the viewpoint of whether or not it harms or threatens America. And I just don't believe the characters would believe that or care about that in that way.
Yeah, she's talking about disarming mines across Kandak's highways. I think this is meant to be a sort of parallel to Golden Age Superman, who was, before supervillains showed up, just trying to deal with actual things that Americans had to deal with, like poor working conditions and unsafe drivers and war profiteers and Washington lobbyists.
Yeah, abusive spouses, the Ku Klux Klan,
Exactly.
Just normal, regular kinds of evil. Right, and there is, like, I do appreciate, like, the light shined on the idea that there's a lot of work to be done in these countries and they need infrastructural help. But, okay, so David and I, after Biden announced that we were completely taking all of the troops out of Afghanistan, David and I actually looked at and found an article from BuzzFeed News that went into detail about the promises we made about infrastructural improvements in Afghanistan and what actually occurred. So few of those projects actually happened.
I believe it.
A lot of the schools they built just never went into operation. So again, it's just like a very post 9/11 pilled idea of how politics in the world works.
Right. So they fly back to the palace and they're told about this Iranian superhero who's waiting to get in touch with Black Adam named Super Sheikh.
Oh my God.
What I will tell you is that this is not a character from anything. This is someone that Jeff Johns is inventing right now. And I did a little bit of research and I found out that it's a term like an archbishop in Islam. It's like if they called this guy the Pope. It's
Super Pope.
Yeah, it's like if they called him Super Pope. It's a choice.
It's certainly a choice. I appreciate that it's spelled Shayk instead of Sheik, which I think is the Western spelling that is more closely associated with really stereotypical depictions of Arab people.
Yeah.
But it still sucks.
He mentions the group Dark Nemesis. That is an obscure poll. That's from the 90s Teen Titans run, where the team was run by a de-aged the Atom, where time travel made him a teenager again.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that happened.
Time travel be time traveling.
So they run up to the shrine to Black Adam's old wife and kids who were killed. He does a lot of exposition about the JSA run that tried to rehabilitate Black Adam before this, that most people coming into 52 probably haven't read.
Yeah, and then from there, Adriana and Adam sit in front of the statue. Adam has just explained that he had a wife and child, and they were killed, etc., etc. But behind this statue, there is a secret tunnel through the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Secret tunnel.
That story about the wife and kids who gets killed and the pharaoh that Black Adam kills is eventually turned into the plot of the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson Black Adam movie.
Are you fucking kidding me? Holy shit, that rocks.
Yeah. So this whole aside that he's telling to her, that's what that movie becomes. Adriana is in that movie too.
If you want to pinpoint the exact moment where Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson lost his mind, it's this page of this comic book. This is where the idea of the hierarchy of the DC universe changing came from.
Exactly. It's this summary of that story. So what Black Adam does here is he opens up a tunnel to the Rock of Eternity, where, as we know from a couple issues ago, Billy Batson now sits in the place of the Wizard Shazam, and he is losing his goddamn mind.
He's not having a good time, y'all.
No.
He's not. He's not only the master of the Rock of Eternity, he's also the master of the 7 deadly sins. And they talk a lot, and only he can hear them. So he is really losing it. I love the illustrations of his little upset face.
Oh yeah,
every single panel.
Yeah, he's just absolutely losing. It's very like I kept thinking about Bud Manstrong from the Venture Brothers.
Yes.
Just kind of coming unhinged.
That's exactly what he looks like. It's really big smile, tiny little pupils.
Yeah.
And eyebrows raised. It's a very good shorthand for, y'all, this guy's losing it.
Yeah, some good art happening here, some good faces.
Yeah.
From the very first appearance of Billy Batson back in Wiz Comics, these kind of statues of the 7 deadly enemies of man have been part of the mythology. Ostensibly, the main job of Captain Marvel is to keep these in check. Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of the first Shazam movie, if you saw that, with Zachary Levi.
That movie's pretty all right.
I liked it.
Zachary Levi, you know, whatever about him.
Yeah, whatever.
But I liked that movie. That is a great movie to watch if you are babysitting a child, I would say.
That is another movie that borrows a lot from a Jeff Johns story. It's an adaptation mainly of Jeff Johns' re-machination of the Shazam origin for the New 52 in the back of Justice League. But I think it's a better second draft.
Yeah, well, it works very well in a movie. It really does. It is a very movie-ass kind of plot. And it feels very much like its original story for a film, which I think is a complaint that some people have about a lot of modern comic book writing, is that you can tell when some authors, like perhaps Mark Millar, are writing first draft ideas with the knowledge that it'll get picked up to be made in a movie and someone else will take it over from there.
There are a lot of classic Captain Marvel fans whose main problem with modern Billy Batson is that he's written like a little Bart Simpson when he is really just like supposed to be more like a Steven Universe. Yeah,
just like a good boy who's done nothing wrong in his life.
Exactly. Who's just going to have to process all of that trauma later as he gets older.
No, that makes him more like Finn from Adventure Time. That's going in the vault, and it's gone.
So the reason Black Adam has brought Adriana here is because he wants to bring her on board. He wants her to keep him in check by giving her the same powers that he does. And he whips out this amulet that ties back to his origin from the 90s Power of Shazam series, where there was this guy named Theo Adam who killed Billy Batson's parents to get the power of Black Adam, which is something that Jeff kind of papered over in the 90s, but is kind of paying some kind of service to here to bring back the amulet that Andrea Thomas uses in the 1970s Secrets of Isis TV show.
This is such a cool way to reintegrate something from extraneous media.
Yeah.
It feels very much like it came from this. If you hadn't told me this came from the TV show, I would never have known.
Right. It feels like it's calling back to some kind of old comic book storyline, but it's actually calling back to a CBS TV show that they put on the air because the 70s Shazam show only ran a half hour and they needed something to fill the hour.
If it wasn't a PR nightmare to bring back the character of Isis, I would say they should bring this character back.
They did bring her back for Legends of Tomorrow as a character named Zari Tarazi. She is never referred to as Isis throughout the series, but like they give you little Easter egg hints that like, yeah, that's who she's supposed to be.
No, let her be Isis. Come on.
Yeah.
I know why she's not called Isis, but please. It's a good character. It's free real estate.
I mean, I know how I would fix it.
Okay. I want to hear this though. What's the Alex Jaffe pitch?
Well, to prepare for this episode of 52 Pickup, I actually went back and watched half of the first season of The Secrets of Isis.
Ooh.
Some kind soul uploaded them all to YouTube. All of the comments are about how hot the main actor is.
Okay.
It's great. It's just a lot of people clearly had their sexual awakening to Joanna Cameron. I spoke to Jadzia about it, and she said she was really big with the Gen X queer community, which makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
The show in execution it feels a lot like Wonder Woman was going to feel a couple years later. Or almost concurrently, really. So it's kind of a proto Wonder Woman where she spends approximately 3 minutes of every episode as Isis, and mostly she's kind of like solving car thefts and Bigfoot hoaxes as this high school science teacher. In one episode, she teaches a 10-year-old boy about death when his dog dies. It goes some wild places, but she has this kind of Sabrina the Teenage Witch sort of motif where she can basically do any kind of magic by saying a rhyme. And anytime she has to fly, in almost every episode, she says, "Oh, Zephyr winds which flow on high, lift me now so I can fly." Why not call her Zephyr?
Ooh, that's good though.
Yeah.
That's really good. Because she's calling out for the power of Zephyr anyway.
Exactly. It ties right back into the origins of the character, and you don't have to talk about Isis.
Okay, we need to sit down and actually write this pitch.
Yeah,
you could do this.
It's a wild series. It's one of those like cheesy good bad watches that I would recommend, like maybe taking an edible and watching with some friends.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you, Alex Jaffe.
I'll send you links to some of my favorite episodes. There's one with like a guy in a big bear suit.
Oh, dude.
Who's attacking some kids in the woods.
I have so much work to do after this. This is going to be so perfect. But after we leave the foreign land of Kondak, we enter an equally foreign land of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
It's just really funny.
Yes. Where the wild gritties roam.
Somewhere out there's Tim Marchman in this comic somewhere out there in Philadelphia is just putting dip in his lip and going, huh. Like that's Anyway.
They're texting like teenagers.
I love the phone that she's texting on, though. She's got
she's got like a Razr.
It's not a real cell phone. She has like a Razr flip phone, and it has instead of a keypad, it has a big old T on it.
Yeah.
When you only need to text T. And the messages she's getting are like fully alphabetical, right? Cassie, where are you? Wonder Girl, Titan, need you to respond, please.
And it's obvious why she's not responding. She only has one key.
Just T. So Kathy Sandsmark is hiding in the ancient land of Philadelphia.
Sure.
In the worst apartment building anywhere.
She opens the door, and who's there but Ralph Dibney, our depressed, elongated man, waiting for her to come into her own apartment, which she registered under the name Donna Prince, as a reference to Donna Troy and Diana Prince, her sisters, which was a pretty simple mystery for him to solve.
I mean, yeah, you gotta pick a better alter ego, not one that has a direct connection to you.
He's like, come on, it's almost like you wanted me to find you.
Almost. She's not trying to lie to Ralph Dibney in this scene.
No, in fact, she starts stripping in front of him for some reason.
Yeah, she goes to take her t-shirt off and then put on another different shirt.
Yeah.
I don't know why. She couldn't have done that in another room or something.
Yeah.
I don't get it. It's another incredible addition of comic book artists who don't necessarily know how to draw boobs also, because they're just two giant globes in her tank top that don't move. There's no evidence of a bra or anything like that. It's just they are completely immobile and are not affected by gravity as she takes her shirt off. It's hilarious.
Maybe that's because her dad is Zeus or something.
So she's always getting a little extra support.
Exactly. The clouds are keeping it up.
Exactly. It's just constant thunderbolts stimulating all of the muscles.
Oh, Lord. I don't need to think about that.
Sorry, too much detail.
Okay, so Ralph is like, your gang got sloppy. I was able to pick up on the clues, like they didn't leave a graffiti of their cult symbol on the door. Great clues finding, Ralph.
God.
You truly are the world's greatest detective.
It's so funny.
What a sleuth hound.
So she explains the obvious truth that we all figured out last issue, which is that they were trying to resurrect Ralph Dibny's wife, Sue. Yeah, because they had all of the things they need for the specific cult ritual, which include like a symbol of love for that person, which is a wedding ring. One of the things missing from the storage facility.
And she basically tells him, we want to use your wife as a test subject in case it goes wrong before we try it on Connor, who I really want to bring back.
This is so awful.
Is that okay if we Full Metal Alchemist your wife? Is that cool?
We're going to give it a shot. Don't worry. If only the Eldrick brothers had thought of this if we're trying to bring back their mom.
They just didn't have access to Kryptonian cult magic. That would have changed the whole game.
It would have solved the problem, yeah. But Dibny, he's not upset about resurrecting his wife. He tells Cassie at the end of the sequence that he wants to help. And that's the last we see of Ralph Dibny for this issue.
Yeah. Ralph Dibny at his absolute lowest, dealing with these clothes-stealing, graffitiing miscreants. Like, maybe they know what's up. Okay.
Having to hang out with a bunch of teenagers, it does seem like the lowest point for Ralph Dibny.
Yeah, somehow this feels more depressing than the scene where he sticks the gun in his mouth. Like, I am so depressed that I'm going to listen to teens.
Yeah, no, I'm going to trust this 20-something that doesn't know anything.
Yeah. All right, well, back to Kahndaq, back to the Rock of Eternity.
Yeah. These next couple of pages, it just takes a long time for Adriana Tamaz to accept that she does want to become Isis and then turn into Isis. She keeps saying that she doesn't want the power because power corrupts, but it conflicts, and Black Adam points this out to her with what she literally said to him a few pages ago about power not necessarily corrupting. This whole issue, it has great plot points, but it feels like it could have used another pass.
It's like, I know Sue Dibny is literally a straw woman, but now we have two.
Yeah, no, Adriana is like a good idea of a character, but it feels like this whole lead up into her becoming Isis is half-baked. It could use a little bit more strengthening of her perspective, especially because she is so right from the gate spitting on Black Adam's face, anti-superheroes being leader of countries. If she had come out more ruthlessly saying, I object to Black Adam because I believe I could do a better job or something like that, it might be a more interesting conflict here. But I know what it's leading to, which is actually some really great writing after this moment, essentially. But coming back to this part, it's really like these 2 pages that I'm looking at right now that start with this amulet and Adriana refusing it. It feels like spinning wheels, right? It's not written with a lot of urgency, and it's not telling me anything I don't really know about the character.
Now, one thing I'm interested in is I'm dropping an image of the costume from The Secrets of Isis in the chat. And let me see if you can tell what's different between this costume and the costume we see when she transforms in the comic.
Well, she appears to be fully clothed.
Yeah, that is one major difference.
Yeah. She's wearing high heels. She sensibly has her hair pulled back.
Yeah.
But the major difference is that she's wearing all of her clothes. She's not just wearing a bandeau top.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like maybe something was wrong with the amulet that it was only able to generate half a costume. You have to earn the rest of your fabric through mighty deeds.
And now it's become reverse kill a kill. I do appreciate, I like the quote unquote, this is the fashion term for them, gladiator sandals that she's wearing, the big strappy sandals in the costume they went with.
Glamdiator.
Glamdiator. In the TV show, she's just wearing big black boots that don't match at all.
That's true.
I just try to think about wearing these boots in a sandy environment and imagining my heels slowly falling into a sand dune and my feet just stinky and sweaty. It's awful. But it's weird, like, it's not just that her entire midriff is exposed in the comic book version here. It's that she's wearing literally a scarf to tie her boobs down. Like, there's just a tiny skirt and then all of her abdomen and just her boobs covered. It's a type of bathing suit that is now very, very popular, but that's a bathing suit.
Right. Well, you know, she lives in a country that's basically all beach.
enough. Fair enough. You're making points. I think it's a good design, generally speaking, but it's not one you could replicate for a movie, for sure. Because it just wouldn't work. And it's another one of those designs where, again, I want to teach comic book artists about how boobs and clothes work.
Physics, yeah.
Just the physics of it. It's like, if her boobs are actually being strapped down by this one piece of fabric, they would not be perky in any way, shape, or form. Because of how fabric and gravity and force works on soft, fatty tissue.
Well, we just learned with Cassie that it's the godly heritage that keeps her boobs up. And of course, Isis is tied to the Egyptian gods. So this must be a pantheon phenomenon.
Absolutely. If you are related to a god in any way, shape, or form, all of your outfits now have an underwire in them. And you don't have to worry about that.
The Virgin Mary's tits were immaculate.
God damn it. Got me again.
Thank you.
So after this miraculous transformation that this entire issue has been leading up to, there's a little bit more back and forth banter. We think they're finally going to kiss. Like, their faces do the thing where they're on either side of the panel where it looks like they're about to kiss. And then the final page, she says to Black Adam, before we do any of the things that we said we do together as a couple, we have to find my brother.
Yeah. First, before all the shit I yelled you about for not doing, a personal quest.
It is very wheel spinning. It feels a little bit like the scene in Twilight where Edward is trying to make Bella admit that she knows that he's a vampire, where it's like the audience already knows, he already knows, like, come on, just say it already. I feel like if were I an editor working on this, I'd probably be overwhelmed with my workload. But I would possibly say, hey, what if we just moved this up to the beginning of the issue?
Yeah.
Because nothing really happens.
They need to end on a dramatic note, I guess.
And she could turn into Isis and then explore her new powers. And then at the end of the issue be like, okay, Black Adam, let's go find my brother.
Yeah. Maybe show them doing some of that stuff that she's been telling Black Adam to do, this whole storyline together. Yeah. But no, we get that later. First, we got to find her brother that was mentioned once was sold into slavery. So we're going to follow up on that.
Several weeks ago, and I almost forgot it, but I have Alex Jaffe on my side. So
that's why I'm here. Which brings us to the best part of the issue.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh my God. Here is where we get these 2-page profiles of the movers and shakers of the DC universe, written by living encyclopedia Mark Waid. Despite the fact that Greg Rucka was right there and did a critically acclaimed run on Wonder Woman for many years. Never mind that. We got Waid for this. But he does a great job. He's starting with our first bio, the origin of Wonder Woman.
It's so good.
A character who is not really a part of 52, but who you should know about. The art is by Adam Hughes and Laura Martin, who won a bunch of awards for their cover work on the Wonder Woman series. Just some beautiful Adam Hughes Wonder Woman art out there. You could find it. They give a special thanks to Mark Chiarello, who assisted on the art for those covers and probably this 2-page feature as well. And we get a condensation of the best and, in my opinion, only canonical origin of Wonder Woman.
I agree on both counts.
Yeah.
My own note here says, this is the most the origin of Wonder Woman will ever make sense. There's no reason to ever go with anything other than this.
Yeah. Most notably is the fact that we get that Diana was sculpted from clay by Hippolyta. There's no godparent involved, which would be introduced by Brian Azzarello in 2011's Wonder Woman run. But before that, for most of Wonder Woman's history, she was just divinely born. Just literally made from clay and blessed by the gods. And I think there's something really cool about that. She doesn't have to be Percy Jackson.
Yeah, I know you always want the option to bring in the Greek gods when you have the chance to work with them because they're very fun. And our knowledge of that mythology is like very robust in Western culture. But Zeus can have beef with Wonder Woman for literally any reason. Zeus turned into a goose to fuck a woman. Like, he's just doing shit, right?
He can just be mad at Wonder Woman because she won't fuck him. Like, that's just one idea.
That's just one idea, and it's incredibly in character.
Yeah.
You know? I like this also. It doesn't get too bogged down in World War I stuff. essentially.
Yeah.
The movie I never ended up seeing, and if you pay for this podcast via Aftermath, go to aftermath.site/products, you may be able to listen to more of my opinions on any of the extra material DC Universe movies.
Yeah.
But a part of the reason I didn't want to see it is because I do not care what this woman did during World War I or World War II.
Yeah, it was only World War I in that Patty Jenkins movie. There was never a history of Wonder Woman in World War I before that.
It doesn't make sense. And we don't need it.
No, I don't know why they said it during World War I. It's weird to me.
It's just very strange.
It's like they had that trench scene on a vision board and they moved heaven and earth to make it happen.
You know, they could have done the Civil War if they really wanted to. I just don't get it. I don't get World War I specifically. I don't need Wonder Woman also to be like a character that is depicted as militaristic in a modern sense.
Right.
Like having references to the military natures of ancient Greek people that's enough. It's like you don't need it to be American.
There is a lot of back and forth and continuity on how old Wonder Woman is. When did she appear in man's world? Was it during World War II? Was it relatively recently? It's something they keep going back and forth on. There was a time in the 90s where they retconned Wonder Woman's membership in the Justice Society by saying it was her mother who was like traveling through time. That's not necessarily true anymore, but who knows?
Who knows?
Some people say Wonder Woman's been around since her literal debut in 1940. Some people say she just showed up. It kind of really depends on who you ask in the version of continuity you're reading or watching. It's a very complicated backstory. All you need to know is that Wonder Woman is from this tribe of women from a paradise that cut itself off from humanity about a couple thousand years ago. They built a perfect society, and Wonder Woman was like, I want to preach the ideals of the society to man's world and make it a more peaceful place. And somewhere along her snapping Maxwell Lord's neck, it became, I'm a ruthless warrior who puts my enemies down. And it's not my Wonder Woman.
No, I think Wonder Woman being made from clay also like alleviates a lot more of these timeline problems, very gracefully. Like, how old is she? I don't know. She's made from clay. Fuck you.
One of my favorite things about all of these 2-page bios is that at the end of each one, we get a breakdown of powers, which is helpful. But what we get that really was the second step of my comic book fandom after 52 are these essential storyline sections, which I treated as gospel. All of these books they recommended, like, well, I got to check that out. I got to check that out. And that is how I became a fan of the DC universe as a whole. So we have here recommendations for the Wonder Woman Archives, which at the time were DC's hardcover collections of the Golden Age Wonder Woman stories, which are very interesting in their own right. Not necessarily good, but William Marston, the creator of Wonder Woman, was doing interesting, groundbreaking stuff with her. Gods and Mortals, which is the start of George Perez's groundbreaking run with her in the 80s. The Hikatea, which is the graphic novel where Wonder Woman fights Batman, and it's Greg Rucka's first work with Wonder Woman. And Eyes of the Gorgon, which was the coolest shit I had ever read, and the start of his ongoing run on Wonder Woman before Infinite Crisis. All of these are great picks, well curated. I don't know if Mark Waid did it or if Stephen Wacker did it, but whoever did is showing you where the real Wonder Woman shit is.
Hell yeah. I think that more comic books should come in reading lists like this. I
Absolutely.
actually did end up, from some other backups, end up buying some books from these recommended reading lists back in the day. It's one of the many things that comic book fans talk about, like, how can we get people to read comics,
right?
More comics and not just one book and then stop reading. This helps. This definitely helps. I remember also like letter columns being a great place to learn what books to check out, because like if they're writing into this book and they like it, then maybe I will like some of these other books.
Yeah, letter columns have pretty much been replaced by internet message boards and social media, and writers being openly accessible on most of them until they go crazy. Or they become sensible and plug themselves off. One of the two. They either lose their minds or they walk away. The people in between, those are the ones you can access online, which is most of them. But yeah, these essential storyline sections are absolutely integral to moving on if this is your first DC comic. What was your experience with Wonder Woman?
I have had a hard time getting into Wonder Woman because of how convoluted it can be. But I am interested in the life of the person that created Wonder Woman, which is very weird.
Yeah.
So that's most of my experience, is thinking about how that person's unique mind created this hero that has gone on to mean so many different things to so many different people. And out of the sort of what are considered the big three heroes of the DC universe, I think it's just so interesting that in the popular consciousness, if you ask a child what Batman is like, they can give you a detailed description. If you ask a child what Superman is like, they can give you a detailed description. If you ask a child what Wonder Woman's like, mostly they'll say she's a girl. And I think that's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a fault of the people who write Wonder Woman, because they write Wonder Woman very well. I just have a very long reading list and haven't gotten to the good shit yet. Yeah. But it is so interesting how DC, the company, has no idea how to position this character that's supposed to be so important to the universe other than she's a girl.
Right. Tom King's doing some stuff right now.
He's always doing some stuff.
Doing some stuff. We'll see where that goes. Best of luck to him. But that's the issue this week.
A little sparse, I'll say. Yeah. I'm excited about the new backup starting, but this issue was not one of 52's best, I'll say.
No. In that most of it was taken up by this problematic Black Adam story.
But that's also just boring. Like, it's one thing to be problematic. It's another thing to be problematic and not very interesting. It's just two characters stating their positions on a specific issue that we already know back and forth, basically for the whole issue.
Oh, one thing I wanted to hit was Wonder Woman's ability to fly. One of the questions I get asked a lot in my other job capacities is, if Wonder Woman can fly, why does she have an invisible plane? Now, the answer to this is that Wonder Woman wasn't always able to fly. Originally, in the Golden Age, flying was not one of her powers. She only learns to glide in the Silver Age. And it's only with George Perez's Wonder Woman in the 80s, which was a big reboot of the character along with Crisis, that she starts to fly, and that also ditches the plane. Now, the plane has made cameos since, but Wonder Woman's ability to fly and her having the plane are more or less mutually exclusive. So that's what's going on there.
So that makes sense. It is very funny to see the old models from the TV show where it's just a plastic plane and a little doll in it.
Oh, it's great.
That's some of the great joys of life, I would say, is looking at that shit.
Favorite scenes, it's hard to pick. I mean, I guess the choices for me are either Renee throwing the bottle at Vic's head or this Wonder Woman backup, which is beautiful.
Well, if you're going with I have this two same exact picks. The Adam Hughes art in this backup is so breathtaking. It's gorgeous. Yeah. You see why she's a Wonder Woman when he draws her like that. But I personally, I like any scene with Vic and Renee, and I love him. I love Renee bonking him on the head. It just is so funny. It's very in character. Yeah.
The light physical abuse is all right.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with it.
You know, if it was really a problem, Vic would have put a stop to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to put on the blackboard this week?
Yes. What's up with Philadelphia? Why did it make just Philadelphia? That's what I'm putting up on the blackboard. I know what Philadelphia is like in the real world. Yeah. But did Cassie come to Philadelphia because that's the last place anyone would look in the DC universe? What's going on?
That's about right. It's a place with a little bit of JSA background before that point. The hero Liberty Bell was based there.
Oh, yeah. Liberty Bell.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
After this, Jeff Johns would move the Shazam story to Philadelphia from the fictional Fawcett City. So that's why the 2019 Shazam movie takes place in Philly. Because Jeff made that move in 2011. Couldn't tell you why. I think he just kind of wanted to ground it in a more realistic setting than Fawcett City with its kind of bright Art Deco style. I don't know why people love to depict Philadelphia as this rundown trash hole. I mean, it's a popular thing on TV.
It seems like a normal place. Yeah. Yeah. There's like a whole series of Creed movies that take place there. And it's weird. Two
of the most popular TV shows right now, Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Abbott Elementary, are both about Philly being a rundown trash hole.
It's true. I mean, I do understand it, but I also like all of my friends that move out of New York move to Philly. So my impression of it is really positive.
Well, the Teen Titans, I believe, were based in New York for a while. So I guess Wonder Girl would be another one of those New York to Philly transplants.
Oh, shit. That's true. So the rent just got too high for her. And that's why she's there. She's a single woman living on her own. You know, getting a 1-bedroom or a studio is really hard. And she's got a whole ass bedroom in this place, right? It's not just one big room.
Yeah. Good for her.
I guess that's why. Good for her, girl. Cassie Sandsmart. I think she's going to make it after all.
Now, what I want to throw on the board is the 7 deadly sins. We see Billy talking to them throughout this issue. There's a really gross cutaway where he tells Lust to calm down after Adriana shows up that we didn't even talk about. Now, these 7 enemies of man, as they're called in the early comics, some of them were replaced by like laziness or selfishness because Golden Age comics didn't want to deal with the concept of lust. But Jeff specifically keeps dealing with these sins the more he deals with these Shazam stories. And in the Justice League backups, he like creates Gijinkai for each of them, basically, just showing what they look like in real life. And when they like come to life and sow chaos amongst humanity. And I want to show you this picture and why I keep thinking about it. And I want to see if you can guess which one of these 7 sins I have the biggest problem with.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Which one of these do you have the biggest problem with? I mean, my biggest problem with this image is, at a glance, I cannot tell which of the 7 sins are which. Like, envy and lust I can pick up pretty handily.
Envy is the green-eyed guy.
Yeah. Greed, I see.
Lust is interesting to me. I like what he does with Lust, in that Lust is the guy in the straitjacket with his tongue hanging out. He's the one who can't control himself. He's a freak. Oh,
he's too horny. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Most of these like depictions of lust that you'll see in anime and in other stuff that just make it a really sexy girl. But this kind of turns it around that like the personification of lust wouldn't be someone who inspires lust. It would be a real freak.
Yeah, yeah. So the person I would assume was lust is probably Wrath?
That's Pride.
Pride.
The woman is Pride.
The woman is Pride. Okay.
Because women are too proud of themselves.
Yeah. No, I don't know if that's a better change, but we'll just talk. Yeah. We'll just. To me, it's Gluttony and Wrath, who must be the big man.
Yeah, Gluttony and Wrath are the big monsters in the back.
They're just too similar. They're too similar shaped. I don't get it, and I don't like it. I don't know what your problem is exactly, but my problem is these designs are bad.
You'll see it. Once I point it out, you'll see it. Way in the front, right in front of Sloth, who's kind of lazing on the ground, we've got this goddamn Fagin with a tiny hat and a huge pack.
Oh my god.
That's greed right there. They drew that in a comic. That is canon.
They drew that in a comic book? I'm sorry, I didn't notice the tiny hat.
You've got to pick a pocket or two, ass motherfucker.
I did not notice the tiny hat, but he also has a hooked nose. I'm dying. I can't believe they put this in the comic book and no one was like, maybe that looks too much like the Happy Merchant.
Yeah, it's very upsetting to me.
Oh my god. Yeah, and this is no good.
The personification of greed is like a Judenrat caricature. It sucks.
It looks like it came from 4chan. I was too distracted by not being able to figure out what everything was at a glance that I saw the big sack, right?
Yeah.
And I was assuming the person who designed this was like,
that'd be Gary Frank.
Everyone will just look at the big sack and they won't notice the Jewish caricature I've drawn for the face, which is what happened to me.
I don't know why anyone would think this was a good idea.
And it's a bad idea, actually.
No.
I think we can go on record and say this idea is bad.
It upsets me a lot.
And it shouldn't have been done.
All right. Well, that's what I wanted to put on the blackboard, that not everything they do with the 7 deadly sins in the DC universe is great.
Duly noted.
All right. Let's go on to asking the questions, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, our first comes from Jeff, who says, who's the starring cast in the Marvel Comics version of 52? What characters give you the same vibe as Booster, Elongated Man, and the rest in their place in the universe and relative strangeness? This one's all you, because I don't know shit about Marvel.
God, I mean, I don't know a lot about Marvel, and I don't read a lot of Marvel. I read a lot of X-Men. What I like about X-Men is that they are already in their little sub-universe in the DC Comics universe. So it feels like, to me, as a non-Marvel reader, that the X-Men are just a continuously running 52.
Yeah.
Where they're having their own little shit go on in the corner while the Avengers deal with all the other threats that are going on. X-Men really just deal with X-Men stuff. And I like that.
Do you think X-Men benefits from being part of the Marvel Universe, or is it a hindrance?
I think when it comes to really big events, it's absolutely a hindrance. I've seen in multiple different big events where the X-Men stuff kind of has to grind to a halt, and we have to come up with justifications for X-Men wanting to be a part of these broader political struggles. I think Civil War was the most egregious one, where they had to come up with a reason for the X-Men just not wanting to be involved. And I think it's made things really complicated for the Marvel Cinematic Universe in ways they could never have really expected it to happen, where characters that are mutants now can't be mutants anymore because one company owns all the mutants and the other company owns literally everything else. Quicksilver is a great example of that, right? He was supposed to be in the Avengers, and so is Scarlet Witch, but it seems like pretty much Fox has Quicksilver and Marvel Disney has Scarlet Witch, and even though they're literally twins, they probably will never meet again. And that's one of the more meaningful relationships both of those characters have in their lives, is with their sibling. It makes it unnecessarily complicated. I would love to see, because I'm an X-Men only reader, I would love to see an imprint that is just X-Men don't have to deal with the rest of the superhero stuff.
All-Star X-Men.
Better than what we got, All-Star X-Men. Yeah. That's what I'm really hoping for.
Was there a comic called All-Star X-Men?
Oh, it was the Ultimate line. There was Ultimate X-Men. And it was good for a while, and then in the last, it just got really messy in ways that were really frustrating, and they really upped the incest quotient with Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, which I was not loving that.
Why do they keep doing that?
I don't know.
I was reading Old Man Logan, and it was like, this Mark Millar book is really good. And then it ends on this incest plot between Bruce Banner and his cousin. It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, that's a Mark Millar problem.
Yeah.
He's always going to send some sexual gross out to you after he's done writing a perfectly good comic book. And then he'll just be like, and then everybody got raped and did incest. Ah, ha, ha, ha. That's his whole thing.
I tricked you into reading my rape fantasy. You can't take it back.
It must be a fetish for him. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Not the rape fantasy, but tricking people into reading it.
Into reading it. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
That's the part of it. All right. This next question comes from ZH, who asks, how do you find time to keep up with current comics and read old books at the same time? I've been trying to do a chronological read-through, of the major DC events post-crisis, but I found it so tough to get through stuff like Death and Return of Superman or Nightfall while also reading 5 to 6 new issues every week. And that doesn't even mention getting into the other publishers. How do you guys do it? Do you have a system? I don't. Or have you just been reading comics for long enough that you're caught up with all the classics? Never stop reading comics.
Never stop reading comics. But here's the answer. Stop what you're doing. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Read what you like and only what you like.
All right. The way I became so well-read is essentially through a series of dares that have been escalating since 2011. I have a very close personal friend who I promise not to mention by name on the podcast because they are a very private person. But we started a 2-person comic reading book club after meeting each other on LiveJournal. And since then, we have just gone back and forth with these escalating challenges that have gotten so Byzantine that I've become the one of the foremost experts on comic books in the field today. It's absolutely gotten out of control.
That's the only way you can do it if someone's challenging you and you are the kind of person to never back down. Yes.
It's the same reason we see so many people taking on 52 for the first time with this podcast.
Yeah.
You need a buddy to get through it. Reading is a social experience.
Especially comics. Yes.
Books are meant to be part of a book club. You're supposed to talk about it after you read it. If you're going to go on it solo, you're going to find yourself very alone.
Yes, and I think especially comics, I think all pulp art forms are made with the intention of being discussed because they come out sequentially.
Right.
It's the same as the idea of having a television show that everybody can talk about around the water cooler at work. It doesn't even matter if you like that show. It's just something that all people can talk about at the same time. It's a social activity that's what makes it fun and important.
And that's really the appeal of event comics, really. It's not because the comics are good. They're usually not. It's so you could all talk about what's happening at the same time. Complain about the things you don't like. Talk about where it's going. Say, I can't believe so-and-so hooked up or died. The appeal of reading comics like newspapers is that you can get passionate about these events that didn't happen without any real stakes.
Yeah. Reading stuff like The Death and Return of Superman and Nightfall, those books are really good. They're some of the best event books that have ever been done, I think, especially in terms of Nightfall, which I've always been a big fan of. But my strategy, if I were in that situation, would be I'd still buy the books that I'm interested in keeping up with monthly, but I'd just read the things that I wanted to read first and then get to the books that are current when I get to them.
Yeah, that's absolutely it. Read what you want to read. But if you keep reading, you'll eventually get to the point where you're reading the stuff you wouldn't have wanted to read before because you're so invested in this world and these characters and these writers. It's very much a dessert first medium.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good way to describe it.
That's my strategy. You said it yourself. Never stop reading comics. That's the key. Just keep at it. And you'll find yourself an expert in no time. A great way to do that is to use apps like Hoopla, which have a huge comic library, DC Universe Infinite, Marvel Unlimited, all great subscription services that give you access to a huge library. Comixology Unlimited is great for indies. I don't know what the status of that is right now. I know Amazon's doing some weird fuckery. But there are resources out there. Don't be afraid to use your local library.
It's such a good tip. Local libraries usually have very good comics collections because they're trying to get more youth to come to the library. And if they don't, interlibrary loans will do a lot for you. And so will all of the e-reader apps that libraries now use. They're excellent.
Yeah, it costs a little more money, but at the ultra tier on DC Universe Infinite, comic book releases are only 1 month after street date, so you can basically be current on everything. And it's absolutely worth it, in my opinion, if you want to be up to date on DC stuff, which I am and I do. And that's how I do most of my reading. I don't mind being a month behind because I've got 80 years of comics before that to catch up on.
Yeah, I feel this way about video games also. Like, you have to not be afraid to get a little bit behind if you want to go through your backlog. And it's okay to not be exactly current on everything.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think, preferable. I think that you get a better sense of what you will like and dislike if you give things a chance to breathe after they release and you're not always trying to stay on top of everything just for the sake of being on top of everything.
And that's especially if you're going through comics as a solo pursuit. If you're doing it for your own enjoyment and your own edification and your own exposure to these creative media, then why does it matter what comes out when?
Yep, that's exactly how I feel. That's why I wait until every single major event wraps until I start reading it.
A solid strategy. Anyway, that's been 52 Pickup for this week. Next week, we go into issue 13, which will be the quarter way of the whole series.
Ooh!
Yeah. We'll be 1/4 done, one season in, as it were.
If this was a television show, we'd be going on our Thanksgiving break right now, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just thankful to have you listening to the show. Please listen and rate and review it and tell your friends about it because
Please do.
I think we're doing something special together here, and I'd love more of you to be a part of it.
Yes.
Tell a friend about 52 Pickup.
And if you leave a review, I'm making this promise here now to you, to Alex, to everyone listening. If you read a review and I think it's funny, I personally think it's funny, so there's no objective measure here. It's completely subjective. If I think it's funny, I'll read it on air.
Yeah. That is Gita's promise to you. That is a responsibility they are taking on and something I don't have to do. And I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. It's got to be funny to me. So I'm not just going to read a review because you wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Make me laugh. If you make me laugh out loud, I will put it in the show notes and I will remember to read it later on air.
All right. That's a Gita guarantee.
That's right.
I do have one question for you about that, though.
Oh, yeah. Let me know. Let me know what it is.
Are you ready?
What? 52 Pickup is an Aftermath production created by Gita Jackson and Alex Jaffe and edited by Esper Quim, with original music by John Ahrens. The views and opinions expressed on this show are solely those of the show's personalities and do not reflect those of DC Entertainment or Warner Brothers. Please rate and review our show wherever you can and send your questions and comments to 52mailbag@gmail.com. Never stop reading comics.